Hi everyone, this is Kyle with KayDbait. I wanted to do a video. I made one recently about the way people handled the election results and how it was really messed up. That people were calling for a dismantlement of the system because they didn't like who won, not because they thought the system itself was messed up. People that complained about the system beforehand were their credibility should have been accepted, but was then questioned because, oh, you just didn't like the outcome. And the people now, like, it's always been bad. You don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, and you don't talk about people's relationships, kind of, when you're at home. So, but those, it shouldn't be that way. Like, it shouldn't be so bad that if politics are involved, that you are incapable of being civil. I know it's difficult to talk to somebody who has a different viewpoint than you and not get bothered, because you're like, oh, well, how did you come across this ideology? How did you come to the conclusion of where are your sources? Where is your information coming from? Why are you wrong? And that's the conclusion people come to, is they're wrong. And when two sides are doing that to each other, you tend to get an argument. It's not productive. But that cliche that you don't talk about politics with your family, or you don't talk about politics with your friends, or you don't talk about it at work, or you don't talk about it anywhere, that cliche, that idea in our social structure, that's wrong. You should be able, as a society, as a person, to be civil with people you disagree with. If you are incapable of being civil, that's your fault. If they're being uncivil, then that's their fault. But unless you're cramming it down somebody's throat that doesn't want to hear it, like if they're busy or if they ask you not to, civilly, it's like, hey, I'm not dealing with that right now, or, I'm doing something else, or, that kind of stresses me out. Maybe we can talk about it later. That kind of stuff. You can be civil and say, you know what? It's not really my thing. Maybe later, if I'm feeling up for it. Because some people are just not into it. Like, you don't talk about something with somebody that's just not into it. But this is like, I'm incapable of not being angry about this particular thing, and that's most people in our society. And it's not even that it's personal. It's just that you immediately go to that "you're wrong" stance and yell. So it's almost a joke. It's like when I was with my friends, we could talk about certain things and no one would care. If we were with that person or with that person, we didn't talk about certain things because it's not cool to talk about certain things when they're bothered by it or they're sensitive to something. You don't make a certain joke in certain company because it's considered, you lack tact. You lack awareness to your situation. And so that I understand. But what I'm talking about isn't that. I'm talking about where it's not that they're hurt by this or they're sensitive to the point of it, it making them uncomfortable. This is more like to say, if I'm of a certain party and you're of a different party, I'm going to punch you in the face. Or I am going to literally consider you less than me as a person because of your ideology or because your political persuasion. And that's wrong. You are wrong. And I'm talking about that literally. Like, if you are incapable of having civil discussion because you get angry because they are wrong, why won't they listen to me? They're idiots, they're inferior, they should die. That, you, as YouTube watchers, like people that watch YouTube, the comment section of YouTube is that. The instantaneous extreme, even if the video has nothing to do with it. If you think that somebody has a certain persuasion, you will immediately start yelling and vomiting on them the most putrid and vile and disgusting things because they're wrong and they have to be educated, and I'm the only one that, as long as I'm loud and obnoxious, they'll listen to me. They'll have to. All caps, vulgarity, call their mother a whore, anything. Like, you will insult their intelligence, you will insult their humanity, you will insult their families, their, just everything. You'll threaten them. You'll not just with violence, but with all kinds of horrible things. You'll attack their political persuasions. You'll attack their religious persuasions. You'll attack anything, everything. And when you go to a comment section, you kind of expect that. But when you're in the real world, because the comment sections are not the real world. That's like the anonymous chat room. That's the like the internet. Comment sections, anyone can be saying anything, and yeah, you can usually track them back to something, but in that little box, no one cares. And some people do, like the people making the videos, they might see this hate, like 1,000 people telling them to die, and it might cause depression or whatever. So yeah, that's a valid thing. But I'm talking about a political video that somebody makes, like me. And you see 100, which I haven't seen because I haven't had that many comments, but you see a whole bunch of things directed towards me. Okay, I can see that as being a potential, like I must have done something wrong, maybe. But if I'm talking about a third-person video, like something from MSNBC or something from Fox News or something from any of those news organizations, and you see somebody's comment, unrelated to anything, and then you comment on it, and they comment on it, and you comment on it. That does not matter. That is just two people screaming at each other through anonymity and being stupid. But as a people in real life, me talking to a friend, or me talking to a family member, or me talking to a coworker, or a stranger that I met online, or somebody I met in a social gathering, or anything, if I am incapable of civil discussion about even controversial topics, because a controversial topic, it's controversial because it has a diverse ideological view. Like, people can have different views. It's like, oh, abortion, oh, you're pro and you're con? That's widely controversial. And because people can be on both sides, and there's a million shades in between. And that doesn't mean you cannot discuss. It means you might not agree. And there's a major difference between those two. My previous video was about the extreme response to something that was controversial, but the extreme response wasn't reasonable. It wasn't something that showed you understood the system. It means you just didn't like the outcome. And so this is kind of a reflection of that. It's one of the outcomes of this yell and yell and yell and maybe you'll get your way, which is, if it's controversial and I don't like it, every other person involved is wrong, and therefore I am justified in my actions to correct it. And that mentality is what was going on. They wanted to do away with the system in the middle of the process. They wanted to do away with the person. They wanted to do away with the entire system of the Republicans. They threatened, and they boycotted, and they all of these things that were against the system that they claimed just a few weeks ago were awesome. And this hypocrisy. So and I'll go back to the first thing I was talking about. If I'm talking to you, like if you, whoever is watching this, if you were standing in front of me and we were talking and I brought up something that you didn't like if I brought up a viewpoint, a worldview, an ideology, anything that you did not like, we can still have a civil discussion. I use facts. You use facts. We have emotional responses that we can use to fuel our arguments, but we cannot use them to build our arguments. An emotional response is used as an energy source, not as a foundation for your arguments. Those are facts. Facts build foundation. Your interpretation, your value system, which is your ideology, your personal beliefs, your I value human life in relation to spirituality, or in relation to this religion, or maybe I was raised this way, or maybe I have a personal experience that showed me this. Those are interpretive belief systems. They're interpretive value systems where I would value this person over that person for this reason or another, and you can have those arguments, and you can have these ideas of what caused you to have your belief systems, and those are really deep seated and really rooted in who you are as a person, and the building blocks of your personality, and the building blocks of how you view the world. And those are amazing. They're beautiful, and those can be discussed for hours, if not solid weeks of dialogue. And I have had that with my friends. Where did you come up with this idea? I want to know. I want to understand. But if you don't have that, and all you see is a differing opinion as being wrong, like, oh, their viewpoint is different than mine, it's not because they have a different ideological view, because they were raised in a different belief system, or they were raised in a different culture, or no, it is not that complicated. They're just morons. That is as much thought as those internet arguments have. I'm right, you're wrong, go die in a fire, you lobotomized chimpanzee. And you see it every time you go into a comment section. There's someone that is just being controversial for the sake of getting a response. Trolls or just inflammatory politics or anything like that. You'll see that in anything. And yeah, you can be offended because they said something horrible, like the Holocaust was justified. I've met people, I have talked to people face to face who said the Holocaust was justified and every single Jew that died in the Holocaust deserved it. And I was offended by that. It's like, how could you believe that? They believed in karma. The very, very specific kind of karma that was from India, that believed that anyone who has something bad happen to them in a previous life did something bad, and that's why. So yeah, they had a reason that I strongly disagree with, and I believe their ideology is based off of an outdated ideological religious, psychosis that was designed by the government to, push down the poor people and raise up the rich people. So yeah, I disagree with that very strongly, and I have a reason for why I disagree with that very strongly. But what I said to them was that we have an ideological difference that I will never be able to get past, and that is my fault that I cannot have a civil discussion in that level. That's my fault. I still think they're wrong, and I believe, and I very much hope, that they someday learn the humanity of, I accept there are different reasons for these things that could have been, instead of just saying, yeah, they deserved it, end of story, cut and dry, go away. So I am not perfect. I never claimed to be. I never said I was. And so I have a limitation. It's a pretty extreme limitation of having a civil discussion about why Jewish people deserve to die, which I don't agree with. But I think that's a pretty good level to have a problem with. I mean, if I can say that because Trump won, he deserves the win. I hate Trump. I hate everything he stands for. I believe that he has done criminal acts. I believe that he's a liar. I believe that he is very dangerous. But he won. And I respect the win. And I have, for many years, had issues with the process. I've had issues with the hypocrisy and the lying in the government from both sides, from every side. Democrats and Republicans, they make campaign promises and they don't follow through with them. They say they're going to do something, they do something else. I believe that should have some kind of repercussion beyond just public. I don't think that if you have a campaign promise and then you literally, once you get into office, say, yeah, I never meant that, I'm never going to actually do that, I did that for the votes, that should be criminal in some fashion. I don't know what kind of fashion. That's my personal belief. So I have problems with the system. It's not that Trump won, it's that the system allowed somebody like Trump to win. There's repercussions now. We have repercussions. And so all of these things, you can have a discussion. You can disagree with me. You can be an avid Trump supporter. You can say this, this, and this. I've heard the arguments before, and I've had discussions with people. Most of the time, I have read into them and found many of those statements to not be true, but I'm not going to just say you're wrong because you have a different viewpoint than me. I look into it. I want to understand. I want to know where you got this information so that I can try to build this bridge to you. This bridge of understanding and the ability to communicate that so many people have lost because controversy is hard. Controversy is so much harder to bridge and to discuss than it is to set everything on fire and laugh maniacally as the other person does the same thing to your side. You say, I'm right, you're wrong. They say the same thing. And it doesn't inform people. It doesn't bring anyone together. It doesn't make anything better. It's not progressive, it's destructive. What are you doing? Like, you're patting yourself on the back, or you're patting this other person on the back that you're agreeing with, or whatever. You're doing nothing. You're talking to yourself and to the people that already agree with you. You're not talking to them. You're not talking to the people that you disagree with. You are vomiting nothing. And I've said this for years. This is not a new thing. And it's just gotten to the point where it's causing major backlash because misinformation is everywhere. It always has been, but it's getting worse. It's getting significantly worse. And it's starting to, like, this is like a tipping point where before misinformation got a few bad things sent forward, or it got people elected that shouldn't have gotten elected, but they didn't really have a lot of power, or they got elected for their own personal reasons, and those personal reasons might not have been super bad, but they were still kind of bad, and that's where you get scandals, and that's where you get people like Chris Christie, who shut down a highway because something bad, like he committed a felony, but it was just, you can disagree with that. You can say he didn't do it. The court said that his assistants did it, but he didn't know about it. So yeah, you can say that, and we can have a disagreement. And then we can look into it. We can say, okay, what we disagree on is what is fact and what is fiction. We don't know, and we're not in agreement of what they are. So what you do is you both step back. I step back and I say, okay, you know what? I need to look into what the actual investigation said, and you can say, okay, and give me time to do that. And then we can come back and reconvene and have a discussion about what I've discovered, and you can have looked into it yourself too. And we can say, okay, what we disagreed on was this. Like, we both believe that justice should be served. You don't believe that he did it. I believe he did. So what we do is we get the facts together. We understand what the facts are. We say, okay, this is what actually happened. This is what was speculated about and what might have happened. This is a theory. This is a theory. And we can look at them and we can say, okay, what's the most likely, or what was proven, or what was, argued. And then once those facts are established, you can say, okay, well, I don't really think that this part's as important as this part. What was his intention? Why did he do it? Or, what could have happened? If the facts aren't 100%, and you can speculate and you can argue. And that is a discussion. And it's beautiful. It's amazing how much information can come from that, how much, even if you completely disagree with the other person, how much you can learn about them and about yourself and about the arguments that you're making. And you build up all of this knowledge about this topic and about what you're talking about, and you're not just spewing randomness that doesn't make any sense, and you don't listen to peer review, or you don't listen to, well, what about this? I was like, I don't care about that. It's not part of my argument. You don't listen to it. So you have to be open to that. You have to be open to the ideas. And I'm not saying open your mind to everything, because it's dangerous, but open your mind to the reasonable. Open your mind to what people are saying is fact. And he's like, wait a second, is it? Are you sure? I need to look that up. I need to verify that. I've said things that I was mistaken about. I read an article and I made a comment about it, and you're like, wait a second, that's not right. So I had to look it up. And I'm like, I was wrong. I read a false article. I didn't double check it. So yeah, anyone can be wrong about stuff, but it's important to be open to the idea that you could be wrong. And I'm not talking about your conviction. Like, people are very, very, very personalized and very, or unique in a lot of ideology and, your religious stuff. I'm not going to get into that. Like, if you want to, sure, awesome, I love talking about it. But I'm not going to start yelling at you that your religion is wrong when it's not hurting anybody. So as long as you're doing your own thing, fine. Politics is not personal. Not when it comes to voting and acting upon those ideologies, like externally. Like in comment section, yay! But it's just so bad. So this video is really about, and I'm gesturing towards my screen, this video is about the idea of communicating grievances, the ability to communicate differences, or different ideologies, or the ability to say, I disagree, but I wish to understand. And people don't really want to understand. Understanding a different viewpoint complicates your life. It makes it harder to choose what you believe, because once you like there's an argument, and I don't think it's 100% correct, but it's a pretty idea, is you can't be a bigot to someone you really know. And like, you can't be racist to somebody you really know, or sexist to somebody you really know, because once you get to know them, then you understand. And bigotry is from not understanding. It's from ignorance. So I believe that you can still be racist against somebody you know, because, some people are just that way, but because it's willful ignorance at that point. It's just this, I'm going to start adding things or taking things away just because I can. And that's more deep-seated, and that's really, I've known people that have been like that. But because you can know somebody all your life and still hate them. But it's a good idea. And it fits with what I'm talking about, in that if you understand, like, if I make an argument that's compelling or reasonable or has a lot of facts in it, and yours doesn't, like, no facts, you're just blah, 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 I believe it's true, I feel it's true, or I read this article that you just debunked. And it's never about changing somebody's mind. It should never be about changing somebody's mind. It's about informing them about the truth and letting them grow, and you yourself growing as well. Because other people, you're never 100% knowledgeable about something. You can know something really, really well. Somebody else can not be as well versed, but they might still know something you don't, or have an interesting perspective that you haven't thought about before. And because usually when you become really sure of yourself, you stop looking. And having those discussions can reinvigorate. And so what I'm talking about is, if I learn from you, then that discussion has been a success. It's not about winning or losing a argument, or it's not about winning or losing a debate. It's about learning. If you learn, if you teach, if you understand, if you expand your mind, if you expand your view, then both of you have won. because that's the purpose. The purpose of a debate is to teach. That's why the arguments are based off of fact. If you wanted to have a debate that the sole purpose was to destroy the other side, you wouldn't use facts. You'd use opinion, popular opinion. You'd use something that sounds kind of right, whether it's true or not. You don't need to use facts. So, like, there's fact checkers for a reason. I don't think they do a good job, but they're there for a reason. If you say something that's not true, it detracts from your argument, because people are like, wait. You said this? That's not actually true. And then, as somebody that wants to understand, you're supposed to say, oh, I didn't actually know that wasn't true. Thank you. Like a real thank you, not a sarcastic one. Oh, how could you call me out on my own lies? But no, it's a real thank you because you didn't know. You're not supposed to be there to win. You're supposed to be there to learn and to teach. And if you're teaching something bad, you're teaching something wrong, you're not doing it. So that is what this is. And these comment sections on YouTube, these comment sections in any article that's mildly political, religious, or socioeconomic, I guess, anything, they're putrid. They're vile. They're influenced by the most basic people. They don't care. They're there to go, I'm the greatest, and that's it. That is it. And I know that sounds funny, that they just kind of throw their own vomit onto something and then pat themselves on the back and congratulate themselves as being the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then they go off and they do it again somewhere else, because that's all they care about is this tiny feeling of yeah, I beat them, whether they did or not. Like, that's not winning. That's nothing. You're arguing with somebody online, and the idea that there's a couple of memes about it. Like, congratulations, you won an argument online, or I must go. Someone is wrong on the internet, and you get all of these really stupid, people that are trying, like they're passionate, but they have no idea what they're doing. And there's other people they know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it really well, but they're not trying to help. And it's just so, like, it's an uphill battle against a mountain of, excrement, pretty much. Like, oh, I'm trying to clean up YouTube. Well, how are you going to do that exactly? Yell at people online? That's the problem. So it's just like, you can laugh at them. They're not going to go away. You can ignore them. They just go somewhere else. It's supposed to be fun for people, and that's internet trolling. But for me, debate has always been, not always, but since I've been trying to understand, debate has always been about learning. It's always been about educating. It's always been about, understanding. And these debates I see, like, I love watching debates, because, like, there was one with Bill Nye. I watched the presidential debates. There's a whole bunch of them that I don't know the names of the people involved, but they're interesting, because you can see, okay, what was that argument? I'm gonna look that up. Hold on. And then I'll, like, pause it or whatever, and I'll look it up. I'm like, that's an interesting interpretation. So I go over here and, like, where did he get this information? Like, he's quoting from this obscure journal. I look up the journal. Okay, that's interesting. Wait, this isn't a real journal. And then you can say, you can look stuff up. It's like, this was credited to so and so who was debunked later. It's like, what? This is really interesting. And you see that on Facebook all the time. Somebody posting a link to an article, and you look up the article, and they're linking other articles, and you're like, wait a second, that article's not real. And so that's a part of it. That's a part of it. Fact checking. And I love it. Like, it drains me sometimes. It really does, because sometimes it's just egregiously stupid, but it's my passion. It's my love. And if you look at my name, KayDbait, I want to be good at debate. I think I am good at debate. And it's my joy. And I really, really don't see it in a lot of places that it should be, like the political realm. and at home. Like, again, this started with, if you can't have a civil discussion, if you can't have a debate, if you can't use facts, then you need to be able to, because you're not going to progress or learn or educate or teach anybody, because you're yelling at them, because you want to win. You want to be right. You don't want to learn. You want them to perceive you as right. You use emotion. You use fallacies. You use, ad hominem attacks or whatever. And you might push them into submission or, just the smoke screen it until they get frustrated and leave. And then you pat yourself on the back. Like, look, I won. I beat them. That's not how you do it. What are you doing? What are you trying to do? You're messing up what it's supposed. You're messing up the process. You're more focused on your desired outcome than on what's fair or good, and that's really problematic. And it's part of the problems I see. It's part of the it's normal human nature to want to win, to want to be the one that comes out righteous. But when you use underhanded tactics, it completely undermines everything you're trying to do. So if you can understand that the process and the idea of moral superiority is not from winning an argument, it's not from crushing them or destroying them, it's about having the process be about education and about learning and about, and not just in debate. I'm talking about discussion about controversial topics. This is the entire thing. If you can't do that, you don't have moral superiority. You have aggressive superiority at best, and that, yeah, you'll win some wars, I guess, but your history will see you as a monster, or at least your coworkers might. So I guess that's really it. It's just, if you want to understand someone, it's not necessarily about putting yourself in their shoes or just accepting their arguments without question. If you want to really understand somebody, you can question them, you can drill them for information, but you have to do it with the intent of learning. You have to do it with the intent of understanding. You can't do it because you're trying to destroy their argument. You have to do it because you want to understand it. And it's really, really, really hard sometimes, because some things are really crazy. I had a several-hour discussion with somebody about why the world's not flat, and they had some really interesting arguments. I don't believe their arguments were valid, but I still looked them up. They said, oh, watch this video, it explains everything. So I watched that video, and it didn't. So they valued these certain aspects of it because they sounded right, and I looked them up, and I was like, wait a second, that's not actually right. This part of it's not true. And then when I pointed that out, they got kind of mad, but it was just, I still looked into it. Because when you make an argument and you're like, no, you're wrong, and then you're like, well, you know what? I'm going to learn about this, and then I'm going to have a discussion. That's what some things, you're like, oh, gravity doesn't exist. Well, go jump off a bridge then. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You say, okay, I don't understand it. I know that it's been tested a lot. There's scientists that can explain why. I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but let's talk about it. At the very least, you're going to get some interesting arguments. At the very least. I mean, it's not that you want to laugh at them. It's not that you want to call them dumb. It's not that you want to look down on them. It's that you know what? I don't understand why gravity works. I don't know what a quasar is. I don't know what these things do. I don't know anything about it. I don't even think quasar is the right word. It's a graviton. Sorry. And it's just, I don't know how they work. I don't know why gravity does what it does. I just know that throughout my entire life, something's been acting a lot like what we think gravity is. So it hasn't really been a big thing in my life, that I've thought about. But then for you, it's a very big thing. So you know what? Let's have a discussion about it. I might completely disagree with everything, like, your idea might sound really stupid to me. It might sound like it's coming from ignorance. And I'm coming from ignorance too. It's just mine is more popular than yours. So you know what? I'm going to still learn. I'm going to look into this for a little while. And you know what? What's 10 minutes of your time? What's 20 minutes of your time, really? Like, if you're super busy and you don't have time to deal with all this weird, crazy stuff, okay. I can respect that, because it is kind of weird and kind of crazy. I have a lot of free time. I can look into it. I don't need to have this pressure of, I need to focus 100% on this right now or everything's going to explode. I can relax and think about philosophical or, unknowns and, this pseudoscience kind of stuff. I can look into it. I have the time. That's the kind of life that I've built around. So, yeah, cool for me, I guess. But I'm also using that to not be a jerk. Because, some people are really passionate and you really want to learn. And they really want to explain their stuff to you. And sometimes I don't want to discuss something. Like certain people, I don't talk about religion with, especially at work. I don't talk about religion at work with certain people because I know that it's going to turn into some kind of shouting match. Not from me, but from them, because I will not allow for bad arguments. And I know certain people there that are really bad at arguing, and I know that they're going to get aggressive. And I don't allow that, and I call them out on it, and then they get mad. So, because I don't, if somebody does a fallacy, I'm going to say, that's a fallacy, right? And they're like, what is that? Right there. Like, no, that's another fallacy. Stop it. And and it turns into ad hominem attacks. It's like, no, you're just being difficult. It's like, no. And then it's just bad. I've gotten into some pretty funny arguments, but it's just, understand that, you're not going to be able to have certain kinds of discussions with people, and that's fine. But try at least, if you have the time, if you have the energy, if you have the means. It's not even about humoring somebody. It's about, what? You have a different viewpoint than me. Completely different than I do. I want to learn about it. Explain it. Let me understand. I'll explain my side. Maybe we can look at this thing and maybe we can figure something out. Maybe not. It's human. It's civil. Understanding. Getting along. There's nothing wrong with that, and yet we treat it as some kind of weakness. Like, if you listen to somebody, you must be, in agreement with them. Like, no. I listen to all kinds of people. I don't agree with them. Most of the people I talk to, I disagree with. But, as a number. But, the people I talk to the most, I tend to agree with, because it's kind of a nice thing to have not worry about arguments, but like my best friend, for example. But I argue with him all the time, so I guess it's a bad example. But it's just, you surround yourself with your friends, and then your bubble gets smaller. That's how it's not supposed to work that way. You surround yourself with your friends who have different opinions and different ideas, and your world is supposed to expand. But for a lot of people, they don't like that because it's complicated, it's scary. So they only surround themselves with people that agree, and then their world gets smaller. And when anyone tries to come in and tries to expand it, even if they're completely, benevolent, they'll be seen as a threat for trying to shake their bubble. And that worries me, that there's so many that are like that, in all different versions. All Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, independent, humanitarian, the Green Party, that are environmentalists. You have, I brought up PETA once. I was like, PETA's a terrorist organization. And they're like, well, no, not PETA, Greenpeace. Greenpeace is a terrorist organization. And they're like, no, they're not. No, they're not. And they got mad. And I didn't know. They were apparently a part of Greenpeace. And, well, not all of them, just, most of them, and they got really mad. Same thing with PETA, apparently. They used to be a member of PETA, and I'm like, PETA kills more animals than they save, according to most studies. They got mad. But, I might be wrong. And when they got mad, I listened to what they said. I looked it up later, and I'm like, well, yeah, I wasn't wrong about a lot of these things. But they themselves were one of the good parts of those organizations. They tried to save the rainforests, or they tried to save animals, and the organization gave a bad name. So it's not you, it's the organization. So there's facts involved, and you can argue for certain things, and you can say these other things aren't true, and complication, like it's complicated. So, and people get mad sometimes, and you have to understand that people are passionate. People believe one thing and might be true. I don't know. Like, maybe they were in a different branch of it. Or maybe they believe that it's okay to do this, and it's not what I was saying. It was something else. The ends justify the means kind of thing. I don't know. I haven't been able to talk to them in a long time. So, that's it. This is another 40-something minute video. So I hope this was entertaining. I hope this was informative. I hope you enjoyed the video, and hope to see you in the next video, and peace.